Have you ever felt like you just aren't getting the absolute best possible results out of AI, like it's holding out on you? Well, I was digging into this recently, and I found a seriously fascinating master toolkit for unlocking Claude's true capabilities. So in this explainer, we are going to dive right into exactly how to frame our requests to get incredibly better answers.
You know, there's this really common myth out there that a bad AI answer means the model itself just isn't that smart. But look at this comparison. On the left, a vague question gets a totally mediocre, tangled-up response. But on the right, a structured prompt gets a brilliant, highly detailed answer. The intelligence is literally already in there. The difference in output quality is almost entirely about how we prompt it. To get to that high level, we're going to climb a ladder of complexity today. We'll start with zero shot, step up to few shot, explore chain of thought, and finally look at combining techniques. Okay, let's dive right into section 1, zero shot, the simplest form.
Now, zero shot is, well, exactly what it sounds like. We give Claude a task using purely our instructions without providing a single example of the final output. For standard, everyday tasks, like summarizing an article or translating some text, Claude can rely entirely on its massive training data. I mean, it already knows what a summary is, right? You don't have to explain the concept of a summary from scratch.
So, this approach is absolutely perfect when your task is standard and doesn't require a highly specific tone. But where it falls short is when you need, say, a very precise corporate brand voice or some strict formatting style that the model simply can't just guess. That brings us to our golden rule, highlighted here in our teal theme. Always try zero shot first. Seriously, keep it simple if simple works. Don't add unnecessary complexity. But what if it doesn't work? That brings us to section 2, few shot, teaching by example.
Right, so what happens when zero shot fails and Claude just isn't capturing that specific corporate tone you need? That's exactly where few shot prompting comes in. This is all about providing one or more examples of your desired output right there inside the prompt. Because let's be honest, trying to describe a specific rhythm, tone, or structure using words is incredibly difficult. But showing an example, Claude instantly extracts that pattern and just mirrors it back to you. Showing beats telling every single time.
And this brilliantly illustrates where the technique is an absolute lifesaver. Need to nail a specific style for content creation? Just paste in an old blog post and say, write a new intro in this exact style. Boom, done. It's also perfect for correcting a misunderstood instruction, enforcing really strict formatting, or, this is a great one, sorting customer emails into precise categories just by showing the model one example of each.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, okay, so how many examples do we actually need to provide? Well, usually just one. Start with zero, and if it fails, add one perfect example. Honestly, jumping straight to using 3 or more examples is a bit of a trap. It just unnecessarily inflates your context window and your token costs. Oh, but a quick warning here. Claude will flawlessly copy whatever you provide. So if your example has errors, yeah, your output is going to have errors too. Garbage in, garbage out.
Moving right along to section 3, chain of thought, going step by step. So what happens when we hit a wall with multi-step logic and the model suddenly starts hallucinating? We have to remember that large language models are probabilistic, meaning they're basically predicting the next most likely word. So asking for a massive, complex leap in a single bound is super risky. Chain of thought forces the model to explain its reasoning out loud, step by step, before giving the final answer. It basically provides a verifiable reasoning chain that massively reduces the risk of errors. This is exactly what you need for anything requiring multi-step logic. Think math problems, legal evaluations, complex coding, or deep technical analysis. And you can trigger it just by typing "think step by step" at the very end of your prompt. It's that simple. Or you can structure it by saying "follow these steps." Oh, and fascinatingly, if you're using Claude Sonnet 4.6 or higher with the extended thinking feature, it actually applies this chain of thought logic automatically behind the scenes. Let's actually ground this in a real-world scenario, like data analysis. Instead of just lazily pasting a spreadsheet and asking for a summary, you give Claude an ultimate forcing function. Step 1, observe the raw data. Step 2, detect the patterns. Step 3, infer the meaning. And Step 4, formulate a recommendation. By forcing these explicit steps, the final output you get becomes incredibly robust. Finally, let's look at section 4, combining techniques like a pro. So, the crucial question, what happens when your task requires both a highly specific tone and complex multi-step logic. Well, that brings us to this quick decision guide matrix. Let's break it down. If the task is standard with no specific format, stick to 0-shot. Standard but needs a specific format, go with few-shot. Highly complex but the format doesn't really matter, chain of thought is your friend. But if it's complex and requires a highly specific format, you combine them.
And when you combine them perfectly, you get this master formula. Check this out. You use a system prompt to define Claude's identity, like telling it to act as a senior consultant. Then, you use a few-shot example to show exactly what the final report should look like. And finally, you use chain of thought to force a step-by-step evaluation of risks and opportunities. Stacking these techniques creates incredibly powerful, consistent workflows without wasting processing power or unnecessarily bloating your prompt.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative thought. We've spent all this time learning how to be hyper-clear, perfectly structured, and strictly example-driven just to get the best out of an AI. But if an incredibly advanced AI needs step-by-step clarity and vivid examples to give us exactly what we want, it really makes you wonder, how clear are the everyday instructions we give to our human colleagues? Better prompting doesn't just make you better at using AI, it might just make you a better communicator entirely. Think about that for a second. Thanks for exploring this toolkit with me today.